The member of the National Guard who blew the whistle on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is back. He has more to say about stolen valor, the national spotlight, and what voters might be thinking. Next. Retired Command Sergeant Major Tom Behrends is my guest. Sir, so good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you've been drawn into the national spotlight for speaking out about Governor Tim Walz, to say the least, who, of course, now a candidate for vice president. I'm sure the last couple of weeks have been a bit of a blur. Any idea how many interviews you've done at this point, sir?
I've kind of got them wrote down, I guess, in my book. After the first day, I thought, I just can't scribble this on sticky pads anymore. I gotta get this organized, and that's kind of what I did. And yeah, it's been, the first 2 days, I literally was just kind of out of the loop. I told my son, I just gotta do this, and you gotta do the cornhole and whatever, and this is important. So I probably did 3, 4, maybe 5 a day, I think, at first, and then a lot of phone calls in between it. So that's been pretty steady.
You said you got to be careful what you wish for here, but we spoke back in 2022 when Walz was seeking re-election. But this dates back decades, as you pointed out before, people, yourself included, trying again and again to get Walz to stop using his CSM rank.
I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major. I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard.
So when you first came to Washington, you were a retired Command Sergeant Major in the Army National Guard, so you were drawn immediately to...
As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired Command Sergeant Major.
It seems he finally listened. That title now quietly just disappears from the Harris website. But do you think, is that really enough? What do you think should happen?
Well, I don't think it's enough, and I think as we're digging deeper into this, like I posted on Facebook, I mean, the Tim Walz outhouse that's out there that we drug him out of and got him out in the light, now we're doing the excavation under it, and the archaeological dig is just continuously finding more things that are under there. And like I said, I think in the end of this whole thing, we're going to dig down to the bottom of it. We're going to poke our head out, and it's going to be China. And from what I've gathered out there, there's some really, really disturbing things with this whole China issue. But all this military side stuff, it's like, oh, I guess I flubbed, and I shouldn't have been using retired Command Sergeant Major. And, now, like you said, it got scrubbed off the website and just quietly changed. It wasn't like they had a press release and said, oh, we're changing our site because this guy's a liar and using his, fake rank for political gain. I mean, I looked up, that him being a military imposter, it just fits right down to what he's done. I mean, you have civilians that'll do it and maybe go to Goodwill and buy a uniform and act like they are something they're not. But then you got people that are in the military and and they say they're different ranks. They say they were in combat, like he did with his weapon of war thing. I mean, it's just disgusting that he continues to still do it. I just can't get the guy. I mean, I don't know what the term is. It's some type of mental illness almost. I don't know what it is. Psychological, something. I don't know. Narcissism, I think, is the greatest word for it.
When you look at the facts, it does seem critics have been kind of obsessed with this timeline. They're saying Walz had no idea that his unit was about to be deployed. That's not what any of the evidence shows, including this very press release from Walz, his own congressional campaign acknowledging it's a possibility. But clear that up for us. Did he know your unit was about to be deployed to Iraq when he decided to retire?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've said it for years that the warning order came out. I mean, I was at drill in Stillwater, and when the brigade got the order, there's no doubt he got it. I mean, the E2s in the unit knew it came out in March, and it was like, the spin came out that, well, the alert wasn't until July, and he got out two months ahead of time, and it was just, all this, well, he was just lucky, whatever. Well, like you said right there, his press release, he filed with the FEC on the 10th of February, I believe it was, to run for Congress, and the warning order, from what I'm gathering now, the evidence comes out that it was March 17th, and March 20th he puts out this whole his campaign statement, and it says right in there, that they're probably going to go to Iraq, and he's going to still keep running for office, and whether he's in Iraq or Minnesota, and it's very obvious. I mean, it's right in his own words that he knew, and then 2 months later he goes out the door. Well, that's just absolute cowardice. It's an unforgivable act, really. I mean, David Bellavia, the Medal of Honor guy, I mean, he was just, it's just horrible to have to do this to a fellow soldier. I mean, there is a code of honor out there that we have, but he broke the code of honor. That's the problem. I mean, he feathered his own nest, and that's why we are where we are.
It seems this whole story hasn't just put a spotlight on Walz, but also the Minnesota media, in a way. Remind our listeners, though, you sent this information to basically every big media outlet in the state at that time, correct? And then talk about your reaction to how they've handled it now that things are coming to light, twisting themselves, it seems, in pretzels, how they can still sell this as some kind of lie that you're telling.
Well, and that was it. Back in 2018, I sent it to every newspaper, every radio station, every TV station that was out there, and my, one newspaper down here published it as a letter to the editor. Another couple of them, basically like the West Central Tribune, I think they said, well, we can do it, but it's got to be a paid political ad. And the Star Tribune was the one that really got me, because that reporter talked to me, and I told him, I said, this is pretty close to true. I said, there might be a little bit of here and there that might not be right, but I said it's 99% true. And he said, well, these are pretty serious accusations. And I said, vet it. Here's the people you need to talk to that were over and above him. Vet the story, and if the story is correct, publish it. And I said, if it's not correct, then sue me for slander. I said, this guy's a sitting congressman. And the guy, I'll get back to you. And he got back to me a day later or whatever. He goes, well, we vetted it. It's all true. It's all correct, just like you said. And we're going to do a story on it. And this is late October of 2018. And then they got back to me a little while later, a few hours or a day, and said, well, we put the story together, but our editor nixed it because they said it was too close to the election and it might influence the election. And all I thought to myself is, what the hell is this, North Korea? Because it's like, state-run media was controlling the narrative. And, let the public decide if they want to vote for a guy that's a liar and a cheat and being, a military imposter. I mean, it's just that was absolutely sad. I'd heard that was out there, that media was biased at times, but I'd never experienced it. And I was disgusted. I mean, what they're doing now, it's almost, I did hear that the admission has been out there that he personally suppressed or suppresses the media in the state. And the sad part now is he can't do that in the national level. He doesn't have his thumb over everybody. I mean, everybody wants the truth out there. They're digging all the time trying to find something. And I almost thought that he must write the letters to them and then tell them to check it for spelling and punctuation and tell them to publish it. That's about what it seems like.
Well, you sent me a text days ago saying that the world has come to an end since CNN actually contacted you. Do you think, though, that people now have a more clear picture of who Tim Walz is, for real? Is that your sense here, Tom?
I think so. I think it's gotten out there pretty good. A lot of them, the mainstream guys, they have talked to some of us, but I haven't really seen an awful lot out. I know they had Doug Julien on, and and he tells the truth what happened. I mean, he feels. I mean, at that level, if somebody bypasses you like Walz did, I mean, that's just a horrible. That's a breakdown of the whole chain of command. That's not how things work. And for him to bypass him and to sneak out like he did, that was just not. Just cowardice. And and a lot of us, we got interviewed by him, but I haven't seen. I looked at noon today, and there's no story published. I think they kind of looked at it like, well, I'm not spinning the narrative they want to spin, so we'll just interview them and kind of hide it. But they had our former governor on there, and I was just like, wow, this guy is just, is he okay? I mean, because Jesse was, he went through the whole thing about the military, the National Guard, and how it was Bush's fault, executive order for getting people into the Iraq War and Al Qaeda, went down the line of stuff. And I was like, that's what I told the CNN guy. I said, just let me get on and let me explain the history of the Minnesota National Guard all the way back to Gettysburg and the National Guard, back to the Minuteman and World War I, World War II. We had people in the Bataan Death March that died, and Jesse's out there, spewing that it was just Bush and whatever. I'm just like, you haven't learned history. I mean,
You've been criticized, other service members have as well, to publicly come forward and push back in this way. Yet again, here you are doing this interview. Why are you still choosing not to stay silent, and why is this so important to you?
Number one, I would say that it's the right, it's just the right thing to do. I mean, the easiest way for evil to prevail, and Tim Walz is evil, is for good people to sit back and not do anything. And I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if, I did everything I could in 18 and 22. I mean, we got the word out there. We got it out as good as we could. And, he still won the election. So it was like I went to bed that night and slept good, But if something like this took place now where he's vice president and I sat back and said, the hell with it, I'm not gonna waste my time on this anymore. That's not what you do as a soldier. I mean, he did what he did with his service. He served 24 years, but the minute he walked out the door, all the training the taxpayers paid for, and he expected him to be the leader of the battalion of 500 soldiers. It just all went away at that point. In my view, I mean, when you're a traitor in combat or a deserter and you walk to the enemy and you're just gone and never turn around and look back, that's literally what he did. I mean, he didn't go to the enemy's side, but he deserted his unit. And the sad part is it ain't just soldiers. I mean, there's 1,000 parents behind those soldiers, and brothers and sisters, and cities and towns, and the whole damn state, actually. And he just walked out and left. And, that's just unforgivable.
Retired Command Sergeant Major Thomas Behrends, again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your service.
And thank you.
That'll do it for this episode of Collin Reports. We will see you next time.